This war is getting hot in places where it's been cool, and we got to go where the enemy takes us.
Well, that, of course, is Senator Lindsey Graham after meeting with Defense Secretary James Mattis yesterday. The Pentagon saying it will soon brief Congress on the recent deaths of these 4 heroes, the U.S. Special Forces soldiers in Niger. They are the first American combat casualties in that Western African country. That ambush that took their lives, of course, raising many unanswered questions about what happened and the deployment. And Senator Graham says that as the influence of radical Islamic terrorism is spreading in Africa, we must do something about it. And the military, he says, is expanding the fight there.
As you beat them in Raqqa, as you beat them in Iraq, they're moving. And they're not just moving to Europe. They're going to Africa, and we're going to have partnerships in Africa to deal with this threat.
What do we do? Well, joining us is Ambassador Dennis Ross, Fox News foreign affairs analyst and former Special Middle East coordinator. Ambassador Ross, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you.
First, the fall of Raqqa. I mean, I don't think enough has been made of this in the past couple of days. I mean, this is a huge victory. I mean, a huge victory, I think, by the U.S. and our allied forces. The caliphate has been cut down. We have taken over Raqqa. What is the significance of that initially?
Well, I think you're right. We need to take into account what this means, at least symbolically. For the Islamic State, when they declared themselves with a capital in Raqqa. A major part of their success in terms of building an appeal was the image that, in fact, they had put together a caliphate. They had created an Islamic State. They were fulfilling a prophecy, and it appeared as if everything they said was coming true. So when you defeat them in Raqqa, suddenly what you're doing is you're beginning to puncture the balloon. You're beginning to puncture the appeal. We shouldn't kid ourselves that suddenly they're defeated, but it becomes harder for them to manifest and convince their followers that everything they say is coming to pass. So this is a significant victory in terms of demonstrating that what was the Islamic State is beginning to disappear. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is that, in fact, they have spread in a lot of places. They have created sleeper cells in Europe. Obviously, their offshoots exist in Africa, as Senator Graham was saying. We saw today that there was a major ambush that killed a large number of Egyptian senior security people, which also shows the Islamic State and its affiliates are in Egypt, in Africa, in Europe, in the Philippines. So this is still a very big battle, but their ability to appeal based upon their successes has certainly been made harder by the fall of Raqqa.
Yeah, I mean, that is like taking Hitler's bunker in Berlin, in a sense. And the Trump administration was able to, achieve this with their allies. But some are also worried at the fall of Mosul. I mean, the radical Islamic terrorists then conducted the Barcelona attack. So I imagine what you're saying is, as you said, they're spreading out, like cockroaches when you turn the lights on in the room. And now our new effort and the new challenge is, for example, what's happening in Africa.
I think we have to recognize that the problem is partly military, but not completely military. We can defeat them in places, but they also have an ideology that is appealing to those who are disaffected, those who feel oppressed, those who feel left out. And so part of our challenge is not only to defeat them militarily, but at the same time, we have to do a couple of things. We have to have an approach that emphasizes good governance. We have to have an approach that helps to create economic development. We also have to have an approach that actually discredits the ideology. Now, we can't do that, but we have one new major asset. You have lots of ISIS fighters who are now surrendering. Now, the fact that they consider themselves and present themselves as holy warriors, the fact that they are presented as if they have a charter from God, suddenly, if you can put some of those who have surrendered, and at least put the image of them surrendering, hands up, it begins to defeat the image that they're holy warriors.
Yeah, and are we doing that?
How is it they're surrendering?
I mean, are we doing that? That should be broadcast, throughout the Middle East and in Africa.
We should be putting that on social media. We should show them surrendering, number one. Number two, we should have them coming on and telling their stories. Many of them also became disaffected from ISIS. And if you can show those who were part of ISIS and put that online, because ISIS uses social media as a very effective platform. Well, you also have to compete with them on that, but it can't be us saying it. But having those who were themselves part of ISIS now coming out and saying, look, here's why they surrendered. here's why it wasn't what it was presented to be. That does create an ability to begin to discredit them. You can't just defeat them militarily. You also have to discredit them. We can't discredit them. Sunni Muslims can discredit them.
They can discredit themselves finally. I mean, look, you had the 1998 bombing of the two embassies in Nairobi by al-Qaeda. Obviously, you had the Mali, Nairobi, Westgate attack, that in 2013. So they've been out there in Africa. Can they finally discredit themselves? Do you think in their hearts this philosophy can finally be defeated? Because it won't stop until that philosophy is killed.
You know, my worry is that if we don't do more to use the instrumentalities that they use, it's not that the U.S. isn't using social media, but the fact is we can't be the ones who discredit them. It has to come from Sunni Muslims who portray them for what they are. They're a perversion of Islam. They're not the representatives of Islam. And more has to be done with them on social media. That's why creating these images of so-called holy warriors surrendering with their hands up does a lot to discredit them. Putting those who actually become alienated from ISIS because they saw what it really was on social media, letting them tell their stories, that can be effective. And also defeating them militarily, because their claim to in a sense, represent the ideal form of Islam is validated when it looks like they're succeeding. When they keep losing, it's hard then to present their message and have it be compelling.
All right, Ambassador, thank you. Hopefully that is the message that the Sunni Arab allies will project. Good to see you.